Hello, hello, happy Sunday. Today is Sunday, January 2nd, 2022. Happy New Year. If you follow the Gregorian calendar, Happy New Year. I hope that everyone who celebrates their holidays that fall around this time have been good to you and that you have spent it and enjoyed it how you saw fit and needed. I don't know what gateway this falls under. Technically, this week is the start. Today is the start of Gateway 9. I don't have the book in front of me, but the Gateway 9, I think, is the Lotus initiation. So obviously, it just started today. But I wanted to just share an experience that I had because I think that it's important for me to document it. So I can't remember. I think I did share in one of my other check-ins recently that I went to the OBGYN for a routine just checkup of everything, make sure I'm good, get my pap smear, all of that jazz. And I went to a new doctor because the job I have now, the insurance is different than the last OBGYN who I used to see, and they are not in my network. So I went, and it's a cool office. Like, I like it. I definitely do think that I do want to stay with that office. I like the vibe, and I'm all about energy and all of that, and the doctor seems really cool. I usually have male OBGYNs, but this time around it's a woman. To me, there's benefits to having both, but I think the older I get, the more I realize like I prefer women as OBGYNs. You know, it's a preference thing. So anyway, getting all off track. I went, everything looked fine. They did a sonogram, which I was not familiar with. When I've gotten my usual annual checkups, I usually don't get a sonogram, but that's part of their standard practice, especially when you're a new patient. So they did, and they found a fibroid, and they said it was the size of a nickel. And I actually have to go back and get an MRI because they want to take a better look at it and see. Take a better look at it and see if it is that we monitor it to make sure it doesn't get bigger, or is there an option on the table to have a outpatient procedure done to remove it. So there were a lot of things swirling around in my head, and there's a lot, and a part of me is still processing that. So that was like mid-December of last month. And I've had time to process it a lot even since I got the news. And so there's a part of me that obviously knows that there's a couple different things. Women in my family do have a history of fibroids, so there has always been a chance that I could potentially get it. I also know that diet and things like that can play a part in it, can encourage the situation to be worse, And I also know that there is a spiritual, mental, and emotional aspect to these, because fibroids are tumors. They're non-cancerous tumors, but they are tumors. So also understanding that there is that aspect that I think a lot of us forget about as well. So with all of this, there's just been a lot of healing work that I've had to do. And I did talk about that in another video where I got an Akashic Records reading done and I was given healing homework. And I think that the healing homework had a lot to do with dissolving this fibroid, because they can be dissolved, but it goes beyond just your diet and getting rid of things and eating really clean and all of that. People forget that there is that spiritual, mental, and emotional aspect that you have to deal with as well that sets you free in all of this. And I've been reminded of that in this work because I think that for the most part, I eat fairly healthy. I don't eat a lot of meat. I don't drink. I mean, I have a glass of wine every now and again. You know, the main things that people would say don't do, I already don't do. So, you know, I had to grapple with that because then I started to kind of get more on the deep end and like, well, maybe I need to cut more things out and maybe I need to, you know, get a little stricter on my diet. I went down that rabbit hole and kind of had to grab myself before I got too far in. But I think for me, and what came up in the reading, another reading that I had gotten done was actually a 13th octave La Ho Chi session that I got right before the holidays. I was told that, yeah, I mean, perhaps there are some dietary changes and things that you could do that will definitely help heal the situation, but this really is there's an ancestral healing that needs to go on here that is showing up. And I wasn't surprised when I heard that because I had started feeling that way. So one thing I did, and I talked about this also in another video, is when I was home for the holidays, I was talking to my mom just about the women in our family and their feelings, and there was just a lot of theme of depression, of resentment and shame, and that stuff stays stored in the body and it can be passed down through generations. And so this morning I had a really important experience. Spirit just can come at any time, even when you're sitting on the toilet when you wake up first thing in the morning. And that's kind of what happened to me. And when I was really, you know, thinking about it, and I ended up actually crying, but it was like such a good release because I feel like I cried for my grandmothers and all the women in my family. And what I realized, I said, you know, for me, my future children, I want them to say when they think about me, my mom is happy. My mom was happy. Every day I got to see my mom be an example of what self-care is like and why that's so valuable and so important and how she instilled that in us. I grew up seeing my mom understand and use her tools for her health and well-being. Like I saw her go through tough things and pain and mourning sometimes, but I saw her use her tools to help her get through things. I saw my mother around a community of supportive people. I saw that when my mother felt like she couldn't do things on her own, that she was comfortable asking for help and allowing help and support. I saw my mother really communicate. I saw my mother and my father communicate with each other and share their feelings, not just when they were pent up and they were in an argument, but day in and day out. I saw my parents not resenting each other. I saw them working through things together and supporting each other and being there for each other. I saw my parents apologizing to each other when one or the other may have done something that was out of their character or was hurtful to the other person. I saw my parents be there for each other and really be a team. And it made me cry because those are not the things that most of us are taught or see growing up. We can even grow in the most loving of households and we don't see our parents communicate how they feel or how they feel about each other. We see them support each other, and maybe everybody is different and they need different things. I think for me, I know that that's part of my charge is to be that example for my future children and to show them what healthy relationships with themselves and with other people, what they look like. And that it's not always picture perfect, but really reminding my children that when things get tough, when they get hard, when you start to lose sight of the bigger picture, when you try to drive, when you try to take the wheel and do it yourself, identify what your tools are and use them when you need them. And don't judge yourself for using them. Don't judge yourself for asking for help. You are strong simply because you exist and you chose to come down here and learn these lessons in this life. So you're already strong. That is a given. The women in my family were, and the women that are alive now are very strong. We need more softness to balance that out. You can be both. That's where I'm at. And that's what I want my children to see. I want my daughters to see that. I want my sons to see that. I want my sons to say, my mother is a woman who was strong and was soft. She could build a house if she wanted to, but she also knew that it took a village, and that if somebody offered to help her build the house and she needed the help, she was going to receive it with gratitude and joy and build that fucking house. That's important. That is important. And I think that that is just some of what I will be charged to do as a parent, as these children choose me as a vessel to come into this world. I'm excited to see what else, that they will teach me, and that I am meant to be of service to them in that way. But I needed to share that. I needed to document it because I cried for all of my grandmothers before me. I cried for my mother, who is still alive. And I said, it's important. We as women, we are more than our output. We are more than who we marry. We are more than who we give birth to. We are more than how good of a wife or a mother we can be. We are more than how good of a worker we can be. We are worthy simply because we exist. And I've been saying this for years, but it's so much different when you really get the fullness of that and you start to embody it and you realize my grandmothers had dreams. They had things that they wanted to do too. And they did grow up in a different time period. They were alive in a different time period. But we don't have to make sacrifices like that anymore. There's no reason why we can't be mothers and still be able to find a way to incorporate the things that we are passionate about and we enjoy in our dreams into our lives. And that's going to look different for every woman. So there's not a one size fits all formula, but we are so much more than the titles that we are given. We simply are. We simply are. And if that is not the one main thing that I teach my children, I don't know. But that's one of the definite things that I want to teach them is you are simply because you exist. You are so much more than any earthly titles you will ever receive in this lifetime. Know that, and know that you can craft the life that you want for yourself. If you want to be a mom and an astronaut, you can. You may have to make certain tweaks, but if that is important to you, find a way. Find a way. Or maybe it's a different kind of astronaut, whatever. But it's just important that we remember that we're important too. And that sacrifice doesn't necessarily mean that our whole self has to die so that somebody else can thrive. And that's what I wanted to share. And I think that that was a really big healing moment. It stops with me. I am the generation that it stops with. We are strong and we are soft. We simply are. And I cried for my ancestors. I cried for my grandmothers. We are doing this because when I heal myself, I am healing them, and I am also healing the future generations. Until the next time, stay fly and stay flourishing.